Hey everybody, today is the 22nd of June 2025. Welcome again to another short video courtesy of investingsuccess.ca. In all of my writing, podcasting, what have you, there's one question that I have been grappling with now for a long time. Actually, two questions. How and why? In my writings, I generally use geocentric type astrology, and I talk about things like planetary retrograde, for example. A classical astrologer will tell you, oh, if Mercury's retrograde, don't cross the street, don't leave your house, don't sign an important document. But why? Like, how is it that Mercury has come to have such a reputation? Well, in this video, we're going to take a look at Mercury. We're going to take a look at how, and we're going to take a look at why. And I'm going to change the way that you typically look at astrology. So here we go. There are two variants of astrology, as you know. There are geocentric astrologers and there are heliocentric astrologers. Geocentric astrology, as this slide intimates, is based on the viewer, us, being on a moving frame of reference. That is to say, when you look into a geocentric ephemeris table, like the one that I've got pictured on this slide, the data is based on the fact that you are standing on Earth, which is moving around the sun along with the other planets. So when you look in the table for a given day, you will see where the other planets are relative to a particular constellation in the cosmos. That is to say, you will see where the other planets are relative to a sign of the zodiac, and there are 12 signs, as you know. By far and away, geocentric is the most common, and obviously, if you look at the writings of someone like W.D. Gann or Louise McWhirter, yes, they used geocentric astrology. Heliocentric astrology puts the observer, you, on a fixed point of reference. I always like to say, imagine if you were out in space standing on the sun. And from your vantage point on the sun, you would look out into the depths of space and you would see all of the other planets, including Earth, revolving around the sun. Yep, you can get a table of heliocentric data. For any given day, you can determine where the various planets are relative to a zodiac sign, and that's all based on you at a fixed frame of reference on the sun. I do believe that W.D. Gann probably looked at heliocentric astrology. He may not have used it every day, but I do believe he looked at it. Now, since his time, there have been amazing advances in technology. We have put probes into space to do flybys of the various planets. The data that these orbiting probes have sent back to organizations like NASA has been shared with the scientific community the world over. And starting about 10 years ago, scientists were able to piece it all together, and they were able to come up with a model that really explains heliocentric astrology. And we're going to take a look at that model here very shortly. If you are interested in doing extra scientific reading, and this is some pretty deep academic stuff, look for authors in geophysics journals and physics journals. Look for authors such as Wilson. He's an Australian astronomer, mathematician. Tattersall is out of the UK. Scaffetta is an Italian astronomer, mathematician. These guys have done amazing work at dissecting and interpreting the data that has been collected from these various interplanetary probes. And they have actually come up with a model. And their model says that these planets, Jupiter for sure, Mercury, Earth, and Venus, these planets are capable of exerting gravitational torque on the sun as they orbit around the sun. The gravitational torque affects the behavior of the sun. Now recall that the sun is nothing more than a burning ball of plasma. It's fluid. It can be pushed, it can be pulled, it can be squeezed, it can be made to change shape. And it is this gravitational torque exerted by the orbiting planets that causes these periodic changes in the shape of the sun. As the sun changes due to the gravitational torque, the amount of solar particle emissions will change. These solar particle emissions flood out into space, and of course they're going to, at some point, impact planet Earth. But our planet is surrounded by a geomagnetic field, and it's there to primarily protect us from things like these solar particles. But nevertheless, scientists have determined that as the sun emits periodic bursts of additional solar particles, that will cause changes to our geomagnetic field. That in turn will influence things like our weather. Now, if the changes to our geomagnetic field influence the weather, just think about it for a minute. What are we? We are water and we're carbon. That's all. And I dare say that the gravitational torque being applied to the sun causes the sun to emit more solar particles, which cause changes to the geomagnetic field. I believe that is what's causing changes to human emotion. And as human emotion changes, that is what's causing some of the volatility on the financial markets. Let's take a look at an example. Here's the price of gold futures. I've just picked this one at random. I've overlaid the chart with some yellow rectangles. And these depict events of Mercury retrograde. So what is retrograde? Well, a classical astrologer will tell you that it's taboo. You shouldn't cross the street, leave your house, sign an important document. But in the context of the financial markets, all too often I see events of Mercury retrograde inducing bursts of volatility on price charts. And so again, as I said at the beginning, why? How? What physically is going on to do that? On the left-hand side of the chart, you'll see that Mercury was retrograde from November 25th to December 15th, 2024. And yeah, there was volatility. Mercury was retrograde again March 15th through April 7 of 2025. For most of that event, the price of gold kept pushing higher. But then towards the end of that retrograde event, look what happened. The price of gold suddenly turned and it plunged. When the retrograde event was over, the gold market dusted itself off, human emotion squared itself away, and people again started buying gold and they pushed it even higher. So what was actually going on at these two events that would induce volatility? Well, let's take a look. Here is a heliocentric zodiac wheel, horoscope wheel. This is for December 5th, 2024. This is right in the middle of the Mercury retrograde event. Take a look at the bottom of the chart. And you're going to see that Mercury was about to pass planet Earth, and both Earth and Mercury at that particular time were conjunct to Jupiter. So now if you think about all of this in the context of Wilson-Tattersall-Scafetta and their model of gravitational torque, here you have three of the primary suspects that create that torque, and they're all essentially conjunct. So they're all collaborating with each other to apply a significant amount of gravitational torque to the sun. That causes the sun to change its density, its flux of emissions. That puts a lot of strain on the geomagnetic field of Earth. That affects human emotion. Human emotion affects the markets. Let's take a look at another example. Here is heliocentric horoscope wheel, zodiac wheel from the 24th of March. This is the other Mercury retrograde event. Take a look at the bottom of the wheel. You have Mercury about to pass by Earth from the fixed heliocentric vantage point. Notice also that you've got Venus right in the midst of everything. Now, I'm not going to talk in detail about Venus in this video. I'm going to leave that for my next one. But these are three of the main culprits that influence the sun by way of gravitational torque. And that is why the price of gold in that Mercury retrograde period had a sudden plunge for a couple or three trading sessions. And once these planets moved on past Earth and were no longer at a hard angle exerting that torque, human emotion settled down, people started to buy gold again, and they pushed it higher. So I'm going to leave it at that for now. It's complicated, and in some of my recent writing, I do believe I scared some people. I think people have just become comfortable to hearing about Mercury retrograde. But in my recent newsletter writings, when I unveiled the Scafetta-Wilson-Tattersall model, I think I shocked a lot of people. That was not my intention, but I simply am trying to explain the how and the why behind some of these geocentric events. And people like W.D. Gann, Louise McWhirter, they weren't capable of knowing about this heliocentric stuff because we didn't start launching these probes into space for many, many decades after. But now that we have the data, science is starting to understand things like the geomagnetic fields and the gravitational torque. So going forward, I'm going to focus on both types of astrology in publications such as my almanac. And I just want people to think of heliocentric, to put it all into context so that you understand what is physically happening out there. And it is quite powerful when you really think about it. And we are very much at the mercy of these planets. We are very much at the mercy of their gravitational torque. We're at the mercy of what our sun does, what it emits in terms of solar particles. That affects our weather, and it also affects our global warming patterns, and you can really get quite deep into it. So you know where to find me, investingsuccess.ca. Astrology letter, cycle report, I've both got. You can also find me on Substack. And on my Substack material, I go into a lot more detail with a lot more examples and a greater breadth of explanation than I do on these short YouTube ones. And then, of course, don't forget, whatever you do, follow the trend. And the trend will change as these planets exert their gravitational torque on the sun. And so I'm going to leave it at that for now. Thank you kindly for watching. I hope I haven't frightened you too badly with this explanation. But in the videos that I have to come, I'm going to start to fold in the planet Venus, and I'm going to start to fold in to the explanations the planet Saturn. And you're going to eventually learn that between Mercury, Venus, Earth, Jupiter, and Saturn, those are the main players that influence the sun, our emotions, and the markets. Have yourselves a great day, and thank you kindly for watching.